999.97. We need to go 3/100ths of a mile. All right, come on. Come on, crack the number. Come on, you can do it. You can, oh, 1,000.03. There we go, 1,000 miles on the e-bike over the course of about 10 months of riding.
Well, I didn't exactly fall in love with the Shuttle SL in the first few rides. Once I had this bike dialed in, I just didn't want to stop riding it. Today, the bike has 1,000 miles on it, a testament to just how much I've been enjoying it. Now, 1,000 miles might not really sound like that much, but to me, what's more impressive is just how well this bike has responded to my complete disregard for its intended use. On a scale of using the shower curtain rod for pull-ups to opening a post-ride IPA with a clipless pedal, my use of the Shuttle SL has been a great workout despite the occasional eyeful of shampoo. Pivot originally told me that the Shuttle SL was essentially a motorized version of the short travel trail bike, the Trail 429. But I basically adapted that corn into a unicorn and have adapted it to be a motorized switchblade, all without breaking any state laws. When we last specifically discussed this bike, it was a cold, snowy winter, there was hot chocolate, and we were having range and fit issues. I was enjoying the bike, it was fine, but we had a little heart-to-heart chat over a charge one day, and now, while we don't always agree, we at least understand each other a ton better. Heck, to the point that this rig has become one of my favorite electric mountain bikes of all time. In case you haven't noticed yet, I don't do the usual magazine test style of review. I don't just ride a bike a handful of times in its bone stock configuration. Instead, I like doing what I need to do in order to set a bike up to work best for my own style and location. If that's helpful, great. If not, you can request a refund by liking this video and subscribing to the channel.
I want to give a big thanks to my friends over at Jensen USA who sponsored this video. Thank you, Jensen. Jensen's a top online retailer here in the United States of America for Pivot bikes and a ton of other high-end bike brands. I've got this Shuttle SL linked to in the description down below. From that link at Jensen, you can find out things like price, specifications, geometry, all those important details. Anything you purchase from that link, whether it's a Pivot Shuttle SL, some chain lubes, some Enduro clothing, whatever it may be, that'll help support my channel. I'm also sponsored by one company, that's Shimano. Thanks to Shimano. And finally, I want to give a huge thank you to Pivot for loaning me this Shuttle SL. They've been very patient as I've continued to ride this bike far more than is appropriate for some sort of a review like this here on the internet. So big thanks to Pivot, thanks to Jensen, and thanks to all of you for watching. Let's get back into it.
The cake. Well, the Shuttle SL takes it, as it is now my current favorite electric mountain bike. I love the Shuttle SL. It's so fun and so nimble. I can toss this bike into and out of corners with not a care in the world. I'd even go so far to say it's the best cornering EMTB I've ever ridden. I can lift it into a manual as soon as someone starts to mutter the words, "This ride is basic." And when it comes to jumping, well, the brilliant torsional rigidity becomes the devil on my shoulder, inspiring many a silly jump that I wouldn't really consider on the heavier, bloated, more common electric mountain bikes. The Shuttle SL absolutely rocks. Back in January, we learned that heavy towing with the Shuttle SL is not what it was really designed to do.
It is worth mentioning right now that frequently I'll shuttle on the e-bike with Riley or Logan on a pedal bike. This is the main time I can tell that the Shuttle is lower power than even like a Rise for that matter. We're going noticeably slower than we would go on a more higher power EMTB. Worth mentioning, if you're gonna shuttle someone with a tow strap, you probably wanna go for a little bit beefier drive unit. That's okay. More juice, please.
For many of us with small children or loaded down friends, towing is indeed a big part of e-bike life. When we first towed up a 2,000-foot climb, it was snowing out, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. It was dang cold, and that zapped up our entire battery. I couldn't believe this, as when we towed that same hill back with an older Orbea Rise Hydro, we had plenty of battery life left. Then again, it was also a warm 75-degree day, and one of my filmers is 50 pounds lighter than the other, but to be polite, I won't specify that it's Logan, who is 50 pounds lighter than Riley. But still, after a bunch of rides familiarizing myself with the actual range, I set out to benchmark what the Shuttle SL can actually do.
Hello. Hey guys. Hey, not much. Have a good ride.
For range testing, the plan was to use trail mode and to attempt multiple laps at a local riding spot. The climb's about 1,900 feet, and it takes about 25 minutes or so to get up that on an EMTB. I do weigh 175 pounds, and range is extremely weight dependent. That said, check out how far I was able to go with this technique.
Whew. All right, let's get back up there. Do this all again. Battery check. 38% battery remains. Done about 4,000 feet of vert. That's pretty good so far. %. Total climbing so far on this ride, 5,800 feet. 4% battery remaining. Whoa. $59.21 climbing. Hour 58 riding. 3% battery remaining. Just to have a nice round number, I'm gonna pedal up the road for a minute or two. We just lost all power. It's flashing. Somehow, 3% of battery right there at the end of the trail evaporated by the time I made it right here. So we're gonna be slightly under 6K vert. That was better range than I was expecting from this bike.
Since filming this range test, I found that I can pretty reliably do about 4,500 feet of vert on an average ride with the Shuttle SL. Again, this is predominantly using the middle power mode, the blue trail mode, and pedaling about as hard as I really can. I've learned that boost mode is quite simply the wrong mode for an SL EMTB. Instead, ride in the middle mode, trail mode, and spin some fast and efficient circles at a quick RPM. The bike's range will be much better than in full boost, you'll get a better workout, and you'll still do 2 to 3 times what you do riding as meat powered. I think 6,000 feet of range is right in the sweet spot for what an SL EMTB can do. I would love a range extender, but those still don't exist for these Fazwa-equipped bikes. Will they ever? God only knows. But since we are a species that invented both bread and banana slicers, I'm optimistic we'll get there eventually. Sizing. As I've ridden the Shuttle SL more, I've become more accustomed to the longer reach. I am 5 foot 8 inches tall, or 174 centimeters, and this size medium bike is ever so slightly longer than what I'd say is ideal for me. To correct for this, I went down to a 35mm length stem and taller handlebars. Like I do with all Pivot bikes not named the Firebird, I installed a 1-degree slacker angle set. This, along with a 160mm fork travel, have really helped my fit. It's still occasionally big, but in general, I'm okay with the sizing. The Switchblade is still bigger, but since the EMTB is 10 pounds heavier, it can benefit more from being a tad smaller and shorter, as the smaller bikes really help to make bunny hops and jumps all easier. The Shuttle SL has extremely short chainstays, only 430mm long. I absolutely love these. The bike is plenty easy to initiate a manual, and the extra 7 pounds of electronics provides more inertia. So despite the short stays, once the front wheel is aloft, the bike can continue to wheelie through all sorts of bumps and obstacles. This is the best wheeling electric mountain bike I've ridden yet. The notorious B.I.G. explained something perfectly yet posthumously when he said, "More money, more problems." For the record, referencing Biggie is not an endorsement of Diddy. E-bikes are indeed more money, and any slight issue will be exacerbated by that extra weight. Speaking of sizing, my biggest complaint is really the size, or should I say, lack of size, specifically with that rear suspension. With only 130mm of travel out back, the bike is limited in what it can iron out and absorb.
Bottom out.
I do wish it was balanced with 150 or 160 rear travel. But don't worry, I stumbled into a fix for this. The stock fork was the little 150mm 36, so I swapped it out with that 2025 Fox 36 Grip X fork. This particular fork felt amazing out of the gate, and despite needing new dust seals pretty soon, it has become an absolutely fantastic bit of kit. I can specifically think of several moments when I oversent, some young man, aka dumb, feature on a steep, rooty, slippery trail, only to smash directly on the front wheel and confront Father Time. The extra high-speed damping from the Grip X absolutely slowed down my inevitable bottom out, and I did not wash the front end. Huge props to Fox for the Grip X. The advantages of this new damper become much more apparent when applied to an EMTB chassis. It's so helpful that I have a hunch that the rest of the bike feels as capable as it does due to this fork packing such a punch. On most bikes, I normally love the little Float X rear shock, and it was certainly okay on the Shuttle SL. But then I noticed I had a beefier Float X2 in the correct and very rare 185 by 50 mm trunnion size. I tossed it on, and holy guacamole, Batman, it felt amazing. On another bike I once owned, I didn't care for this very shock, but it absolutely opened up the Shuttle SL. I was excited to run a lot more high-speed compression damping and rebound, as the bike has substantially more mass than any acoustic bike. But the sensitivity at the top of the stroke was far better than what I ever expected. I wish I had tried the Float X2 sooner. My hunch is that Pivot uses a Float X with way too much low-speed damping. Being an electric assist bike, I could care less about pedaling efficiency, and I'm busy enjoying the extra control and traction the X2 provides. I have to assume that other aftermarket shocks will also feel better than the stock Pivot item. While I wish the Shuttle SL had another 20 mils of travel out back, I'm content with where it's at now. But like the smooth-talking salesperson at the kiosk in the mall, between the rental furries and the used iPhone sales stand, amidst that aroma of Cinnabon and Teen Spirit, I still had yet another trick to make the suspension more of a treat.
The other day I tossed a cush core in this rear wheel, along with a fresh double-down rear tire. With the cush core and the double-down rear tire, I feel pretty good. I got a couple dents in that rim, actually some pretty good dingers.
While we're talking bike parts, let's run through the rest of the part swaps before we get back to the ride review. The biggest actual problems I had were with the crank arms. The stock rotor cranks, yes, confusingly enough, the brand of the crank arms is called Rotor, literally the name of another completely different, unrelated part on the bike. Go figure. Anyhow, the rotor crank arms loosened up on me quite a bit. The 10 mil crank bolts require a ginormous hex key, bigger than your multi-tool. As I ride flat pedals a lot, I tend to notice when crank arms are flexy side to side. The rotor units were softer than aging frozen yogurt.
I felt like my right pedal was loose, but in reality, it's more like the right crank arm. You see that?
Uh-oh.
I called my pals at Praxis, and they sent up a set of no-charge cranks for the review.
Can you focus on that?
Yeah, shake them a little faster.
Is that
If you
good?
could, that'd be perfect.
Can you all see the pedal? I asked my pals over at Praxis to send something up. I'm gonna try out these Praxis carbon cranks. Just to be fun and exciting and different, I went 5 mils shorter in length. I don't mind the 165 length of the rotor cranks, but hopefully these end up being even better.
Well, those Praxis arms are much stiffer. Use an 8mm bolt, and they stay very tight. I'm quite happy with these. I chose 160mm to see if they'd help, and they're fine, but I'd rather just stick with 165s, which I have on most of the rest of my bikes. The bash guard and motor mounts also needed somewhat frequent tightening. Like your knees as time marches on, I had a lot of creaking at first, something I didn't personally mind, as a well-ridden mountain bike always creaks somewhere sometimes. After those 6 T30 bolts on the motor did loosen a few times, some Loctite went a very long way. Now this has all been tight for the last 300 miles with minimal noise. The next issue I had was with the brake rotors, and no, they weren't named crank arms. The center lock adapters got loose, allowing for play in the system.
So check this out. Holding the back brake to the bar. See how much the wheel moves? I am scared this is gonna break and I'm gonna die. Hasn't happened yet. But if I can fit this 6-bolt magnet to a set of native 6-bolt rotors and wheels.
I will mention I'm sponsored by Shimano here, but I've noticed Galfer rotors don't stay as cool as genuine Shimano Ice Tech rotors. If you know, as Biggie reminds us, this is made more noticeable on the more weight, more power, more money, more problems e-bike chassis. I bent time and space and rebuilt the Shuttle SL using all my favorite personal bits. I didn't have a 203 center lock rotor, so I had to go 6-bolt. And to do that, I needed to use my Industry 9 Enduro 315C carbon super duper boost wheels, which is great. I'm familiar with these wheels, so I can shift my test from the sum of the parts to more of what actually matters, the frame. And with the Enduro wheels, I also swapped on my favorite drivetrain, the trusty Shimano XT 12-speed mechanical. How was it ride? One of my favorite things about the Shuttle SL is that it's a stout, stiff frame. I can push it hard in and out of corners, huck it more than I should, and smash through rough stuff, and it stays so well composed through all of that. The frame does not flex and twist and get sketchy. The stock wheels, DT Swiss 1700s, are really good, but the carbon rim-equipped Industry 9 wheels are even better. Yep, the bike is as predictable as a child's love of ice cream when it comes to descending. Sure, it's only 130 millimeters of travel, but at least it's a really, really yummy 130 mils. And none of that dairy-free crap. It's wild how much more a good frame build matters than simply travel numbers alone. Combine this with the extremely nice build quality and the bike's already trail-ready geometry, and well, I'm enjoying the ride more than a fresh cone of mint chocolate chip. Speaking of that, what's your favorite cold treat? Now, in order to get into these fancy trail maneuvers, I really have to compliment Pivot here. The bike is definitely quite lightweight. My build weighs only around 43 pounds, but what's special about that weight is that it's quite centralized around the bottom bracket and the motor. On heavier EMTBs, the batteries get so far up the head tube that they feel far heavier than the large numbers even suggest. If you haven't noticed yet, I like to ride actively, aggressively, and to pop and jump my way around. For me, this lightweight SL EMTB concept is an absolute home run, and the shuttle pulls off the weight distribution really, really well. Even if you're a middle brownie person, there's always a bunch of people who live for those delicious corners. Cornering feels wonderful on the Shuttle SL. Now that I've got it slacker with both the angle set and the bigger fork, I can really lean it over and carve a nice predictable line. The bike is ready to pop out of corners and does so in a very predictable manner. The Shuttle SL is absolutely the best handling EMTB I've ever ridden. The stiff frame combined with the X2 rear shock and the Grip X fork provide a great combo of traction, predictability, and support. I'm over the moon with this bike and this setup. Rich, fudgy, 10 out of 10. Unless, of course, there's walnuts for some ungodly reason. When I entered my first Enduro race in over 8 years aboard the Shuttle SL, I knew I had some serious advantages when it came to the turns. Man, I love the way this bike handles. Speaking of that race, I'll link to the video I made all about that up in the top right corner. I even attempted to race the cross-country event where all of us men were smoked by a woman, Zoe Dawson, who absolutely shredded. I will say that riding the SL-style EMTB with other full-power EMTBs is one scenario that can be a little challenging. The guys on the bigger bikes will pull ahead on the climbs, sure. But the SL is so much more fun when descending that I don't really care. Sure, go ahead, fly up the fire road at 8 miles an hour. I'll do fine at 6. Then when we get to the part of the ride that is far more fun, the downhill, I'll be living my best descending life. Fazwa. I had one error with the Fazwa system, which was completely my fault. While at Crankworks, I removed the wheels from the Shuttle SL and tossed them on a Firebird in order to go for a ride with Fox's new suspension. But alas, I made the mistake of pedaling across the parking lot with the Shuttle SL turned on and no magnet on the rear rotor. This threw the bike into a hissy fit about a missing speed sensor, and it would throw error codes another dozen times or so on the trail after that. The fix, well, it was simple. It was just to bend the magnet closer to the sensor. This worked just fine. Was it a coincidence, or did the Fazwa system ever notice any magnet drama until I really brought it to its attention? Anyhow, other than this, which was fully my own fault, I haven't had any problems with the Fazwa system. I actually love the ring control unit as it's easy to use and I don't accidentally hit it too often. Since writing this video, I did have one more speed sensor issue, and when I put a new one on there, well, all of these problems fully went away. But all in all, it's a great system. I would highly recommend the Fazwa system to anyone looking for a good SL experience. Understanding the SL. Like I hinted at earlier, I feel like I now much better understand the SL EMTB. It's a bike for someone that still likes to go mountain biking. It performs best in the middle power setting, with a rider putting down some decent power, but more importantly, spinning that fast, consistent cadence. Do expect to be more out of breath, and do expect to still get a decent workout, but also expect to cover twice the distance you would on an acoustic bike. The Shuttle SL feels most at home on the same trails you'd ride with that analog bike, live and unplugged in New York. With 6K of vert possible, you've got sufficient range in the intended style of riding. And now that I understand that this is how the bike needs to be used, I'm having a hard time not raving about it.
And transfer! Oh, that jump's fun. Woo!
Comparisons. The Orbea Rise LT. Back in April, I got treated to a trip to Spain, where I got to swim in turquoise water, take a soil sample of my helmet, and ride the amazing new 2025 Orbea Rise LT. That's a super cool bike, and it's also Orbea's third generation of an SL EMTB. It shows that Orbea has a lot of experience in this game. Orbea uses the Shimano EP801 RS system, which is noticeably more powerful than Pivot's Fazwa. For rougher terrain, where you need more power to climb rocks and steeper grades, or if you're towing a child up a snowy mountain on the way to get some hot chocolate, the Orbea gets the nod. The Orbea is also more adaptable, as the frame can fit either a 420 watt-hour or 630 watt-hour battery. and the range extender is easily available. You can make the rise either super light or super capable. But that's not the whole story. I really appreciate Pivot's torsional frame stiffness. The Orbea is okay, fine for trail riding. The Shuttle SL punches above its weight in terms of rigidity. Even though the Orbea has 20 millimeters more rear travel, the Shuttle SL is more predictable and feels somewhat safer in rougher conditions due to the extra frame stiffness. This is really nice, and it's something I greatly appreciate. While the rear axle on the Orbea can loosen up, the Shuttle SL stays nice and tight. I feel like long-term durability is really boosted by this, and the short-term sends are also for the better. Does this come from Super Boost? Maybe, maybe not. Does it come from a solid rear triangle? Maybe, maybe not. But like peanut butter and pickle sandwiches, I don't care why it works, I just care that it works. Norco Fluid VLT. When I first read about the Fluid VLT, I got all sorts of excited. Norco isn't shy to build some strong bomber bikes, and the Bosch SX motor gets lots of love here in the YouTube comments. But then I started to ride the Fluid. It's only slightly heavier than the Shuttle SL on paper, but it feels much heavier on the trail. The biggest issue is the forward placement of the battery in the bike's down tube. This is exacerbated by the longer front and rear ends. The Norco is harder to get airborne, and when you finally do take flight, it's not as balanced as it could be. The Shuttle SL is more nimble and more balanced. While I got to ride the Shuttle SL, I had to ride the Fluid VLT. The Fluid gets good reviews and it's fine, but I'll level with all of you, I definitely prefer the Shuttle SL. The Bosch motor system rattles, delivers power abruptly, and really needs a significant detuning to keep battery life where it needs to be. The Fazwa system, for me, has been an all-around better experience.
Not bad country.
I absolutely love this EMTB, but I have had one problem. Well, technically Logan had the problem.
Pedaling up this hill here, Logan decided to run into a stick, which jumped up, and it actually pulled this out of the chainstay of the Shuttle SL. And then speed sensor just dangling off, so no more E on our e-bike.
We're at 985 miles. Of course this is gonna happen right now. So here's our dead speed sensor clip. This simple little plastic clip is essential for this system to work. This clip goes right down here. Normally it would hold our speed sensor right there, and Viola, it would work. But, this thing pulled out. Now why did it pull out? There is a threaded insert inside of the frame. Well, there's actually not, and that's why we're here right now. So here's our threaded insert. It's this tiny little set screw. So I grabbed some glue so we can glue this thing back in. Workable, washable, disappearing purple. Now, if the paste isn't strong enough, I also grabbed some glue all because this is a multi-purpose, stronger formula glue. And then if the glue all isn't strong enough, then I also grabbed Type Bond, because this stuff works good when I'm building things for the van. They don't fall apart when I use this. And then if I need something that's faster drying, because I kind of want to ride today, I could use this fast set time, and it's stronger than wood. Stronger than wood sounds pretty good. If this isn't strong enough, then technically this is a project. So I got the project's version of liquid nails ready, but it's kind of gnarly. I got to cut it open and get the caulk gun, and then all the caulk jokes follow. That's fun. If that doesn't work, then I got a steel stick from my dirt bike fanny pack. This is good for metal on metal, but this is metal on plastic. So if this doesn't work, then we'll use plastic steel weld epoxy of dubious age. Hopefully this works. So once I get that insert threaded back into the frame and glued back in the frame, Pivot sent over a new speed sensor, because I've had that one issue when I pedaled across a parking lot without a wheel attached and back, and it's sort of throwing speed sensor issues ever since. It's been grumpy. I don't know if the stick damaged. It looks fine, but we're gonna try a fresh speed sensor just to be sure. The good news, I got this thing fully back and operational after swapping out the speed sensor and rebonding the threaded insert for the speed sensor holder. Once I swap on the original shock and talk to Fox about why this valve core is leaking, I will take this on its maiden ride with the new speed sensor, and we will crack 1,000 miles on the Shuttle SL. Thanks to Pivot for sending their replacement parts, and future thanks to Fox for their future help. They don't know they're gonna offer me yet.
Since the fix, I've done a few more rides with 0 issues. In fact, I had to ride the fix in order to cross the 1,000-mile mark. The fix is 100% a long-term solution. Pivot and Jensen USA have a great warranty partnership, so if you ever do experience a problem on your bike, contacting Jensen USA first is the way to go, and they'll work with Pivot to get you sorted. Conclusion. After the first few rides, I felt the Shuttle SL was going to trick me into dealing with some bike built for someone who would clearly not be me. But now, with the part swaps, the Shuttle SL has turned into an absolute treat. When used in the way you need to use it, well, it works very, very nicely. The trick is to leave it in the middle, blue light, trail river mode, and just spin fast and pedal pretty hard. Just trust that the bike is going fast. It won't always feel fast, but it really is. This magic carpet gets you to the top of the hill quick, and then the class-leading handling of the Shuttle SL will result in a whole new world of fun descending. Don't get stuck on the idea that the bike is slightly shorter in travel than others. With the right fork, the right headset, and the right shock, the Shuttle SL then becomes an absolute weapon on the best part of every ride. I am extremely grateful to Pivot for loaning me this bike. It's really shown me the light as to what modern EMTBs can be. Thank you, Pivot.